Salt is essential to our body's fluids. That's likely why we evolved to enjoy its taste. On the other hand, anyone who's gotten a mouthful of seawater knows that too much salt tastes terrible. Maybe your body's trying to tell you something. It turns out that too much salt can lead to a host of health problems. Dietary salt, or table salt, is made from two chemical elements, sodium and chloride. That's why its chemical name is sodium chloride. It's the sodium part that's been tied to health problems. But since most of the sodium we ingest is from salt, it's difficult to separate the effects of salt and sodium in many studies. The best known effect of sodium on health is the relationship between sodium and blood pressure, explains Dr. Holly Nicastro, an NIH nutrition research expert. Dozens of studies in both animals and people have linked a higher salt intake with higher blood pressure. Reducing salt intake, on the other hand, lowers blood pressure. Blood pressure is the force of blood pushing against the walls of arteries as the heart pumps out blood. When this pressure rises, a condition called high blood pressure or hypertension, it can damage the body in many ways over time. High blood pressure has been linked to heart disease, stroke, kidney failure, and other health problems. There are two blood pressure numbers, and they're usually written with one above or before the other. Systolic, the first, is the pressure when the heart beats, pumping blood through the arteries. Diastolic is the pressure when the heart is at rest between beats. The numbers 120, 80 mm Hg are the ones you should aim to keep your blood pressure below. Some research also suggests that excessive sodium intake increases the risk of stomach cancer. Scientists continue to investigate this possible connection. Researchers do know that not everyone is equally sensitive to salt. From our experiments, we know there's lots of variation in the blood pressure response to sodium intake, Nicastro says. Certain groups of people see greater reductions in blood pressure when they lower their salt intake. African Americans, older adults, and people with blood pressure above normal. Within those groups, there's a lot of variation between people, Nicastro says. But about 1 in 3 adults nationwide has high blood pressure right now. Another third have elevated blood pressure, meaning their numbers are high enough to put them at risk to develop high blood pressure. In light of this, she says, it's really important for the majority of U.S. adults to reduce their blood pressure. Experts recommend that adults take in less than 2,300 milligrams, mg, of sodium a day. That's what's in about 6 grams of salt, or about a teaspoon. People with high blood pressure should shoot for 1,500 milligrams. But right now, American adults eat an average of about 3,600 milligrams of sodium per day. Dr. Kirsten Bibbins-Domingo at the University of California, San Francisco, led an NIH-funded study that used computer modeling to explore the effects of a modest reduction in salt intake in the United States. The researchers found that reducing salt intake by 3 grams per day, 1,200 milligrams of sodium, could cut the number of new cases of heart disease each year by as many as 120,000, stroke by 66,000, and heart attack by nearly 100,000. It could also prevent up to 92,000 deaths each year. All segments of the population would benefit, with African Americans having the greatest improvements overall. Women would particularly benefit from reductions in stroke, older adults from a decline in heart disease, and younger adults from fewer deaths. Some countries have tried to lower salt intake using various strategies, such as working with industry to reduce the salt content in processed foods, requiring labels on ready-to-eat foods, and educating the public. The UK achieved a 15% reduction in salt consumption between 2003 and 2011. During this time, deaths from stroke fell by 42% and from heart disease by 40%. But wouldn't we miss the taste? Several studies have shown that as you gradually reduce sodium intake, you lessen your desire for salty food, Nicastro says. And surveys of people across the UK found that most people didn't notice any difference in the taste of their food. A very modest decrease in the amount of salt, hardly detectable in the taste of food, can have dramatic health benefits for the U.S., Bibbins-Domingo stresses. The salt we add to our food actually accounts for about 10% of our salt consumption. Most of the salt we eat comes in processed foods from stores, restaurants, and dining halls. You may already know that fast food, cold cuts, and canned foods tend to have a lot of salt. Many people don't realize that a lot of our salt is from breads and cereals, Bibbins Domingo says. Studies have found that about 15 to 20% of the sodium in the average American's diet comes from grain products, such as breads, cereals, crackers, and chips. In terms of advice, I think the best guidance we have is for people to pay attention to nutrition facts on the labels, Nicastro says. The percent daily value is a better guide than the language that's used on food labels like low salt. These labels can be confusing because they have very defined technical meanings. Try to select foods, she advises, with less than 5% of the daily value of salt per serving. Even small salt reductions can affect your blood pressure. If you can't find a low-salt alternative to a particular food, it still helps to pick something that's lower than what you're already consuming. You can find remarkable variation in the amount of salt across major brands of food, Bibbins Domingo says. Even without choosing something labeled low sodium, you can often find a lower sodium alternative. Beyond salt, a healthy eating plan can help keep your blood pressure under control. Other lifestyle measures can help you keep your blood pressure down too. Lose weight if you're overweight or obese. Get regular physical activity. Quit smoking. Manage your stress. The more of these steps you take, the more likely you'll be to avoid related health problems.
Even small salt reductions can affect your blood pressure. Beyond salt, a healthy eating plan can help keep your blood pressure under control. Other lifestyle measures can help you keep your blood pressure down too. Lose weight if you're overweight or obese. Get regular physical activity. Quit smoking. Manage your stress. The more of these steps you take, the more likely you'll be to avoid related health problems. Reducing salt intake, even by a small amount, can significantly improve health by decreasing the risk of hypertension, high blood pressure, and cardiovascular diseases. Here are several ways in which a small reduction in salt intake can benefit health. 1. Lower blood pressure. Immediate effects. Reducing salt intake can lower blood pressure within a few weeks. Even a modest reduction of 1 to 2 grams per day can have noticeable effects. Long-term effects. Sustained lower blood pressure reduces the risk of heart attacks, strokes, and kidney disease. 2. Reduced risk of cardiovascular diseases. Heart disease. Lower salt consumption can decrease the strain on the heart, reducing the likelihood of heart disease. Strokes. High salt intake is linked to a higher risk of strokes. Reducing salt intake can significantly reduce this risk. 3. Improved kidney function. Reduced risk of kidney stones. High salt intake can lead to higher calcium excretion in urine, increasing the risk of kidney stones. Reducing salt can lower this risk. Protection against kidney disease. Lower blood pressure reduces the strain on the kidneys, protecting against chronic kidney disease. 4. Better fluid balance. Less water retention. High salt intake can cause the body to retain water, leading to bloating and swelling. Reducing salt helps maintain a better fluid balance. 5. Improved bone health. Reduced calcium loss. High salt intake can increase calcium loss through urine, which may weaken bones over time. Lowering salt intake can help maintain bone density. Practical examples of small reductions. Cooking adjustments. Using herbs and spices instead of salt to flavor food. Reading labels. Choosing products with lower sodium content. Processed foods. Reducing the consumption of processed and prepackaged foods, which often have high salt content. Eating out. Requesting meals with less salt when dining out. Evidence from studies. Meta-analyses. Numerous meta-analyses have shown that even modest reductions in salt intake can lead to significant reductions in blood pressure across different populations. Population studies. Countries that have implemented public health campaigns to reduce salt intake have seen reductions in the prevalence of hypertension and related diseases. In summary, even small reductions in salt intake can lead to significant improvements in health by lowering blood pressure, reducing the risk of cardiovascular and kidney diseases, improving fluid balance, and protecting bone health. Adopting small, consistent changes in dietary habits can have a profound impact over time.